On today's episode, as we dive Finn too deep, are the Miami's pretenders after their Week 10 win, or are they starting to turn into the contenders we all expected them to be? Also, who replaces Kendall Fuller? Anthony Weaver announces there's going to be an open competition between the likes of Cam Smith and Storm Duck. Wynn returns to practice. We will have more reaction to the shakeup in the linebacker room, Elliott's comments, and are Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders a package deal for whatever team drafts them at the next level? We'll talk a little draft too. A lot to go over. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new, and let's get into this.
Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, that open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again! Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan.
Let's go!
You're listening to Finn Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Finn Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we're back here for another one. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new as you come through. Appreciate all of you in doing so. And we're back for it's been a minute. And we're gonna about to take another hiatus because I'll be in Miami next week in Orlando. So it's been a minute, but we're back for another episode of Finn Too Deep. I believe we haven't talked since before the Arizona game, right?
Right, that was our last one.
Yeah, so you were sick, you were battling pneumonia and stuff like that. I guess give the people your thoughts over what you've seen the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, man, still on the mend, but good to be back. That Arizona game and the Colts game, I think both of those games hurt, right? Like those are games that you want the Miami Dolphins to win, especially that Colts game with the arms race that it's going to be for that 7th seed down the stretch. And, I still think the Dolphins are a better team than both the Cardinals and the Colts. The one thing that I've seen, and I've seen you talk about this, it's why can't we get these units to click simultaneously? The defense in Los Angeles puts on a master class. The offense kind of looks like a shell of what it's used to, right? And it's been kind of flip-flopping. And then the offensive line's great all year. And then in Los Angeles, they play their worst game of the season. I just don't know why it's so rare for the Dolphins to be able to turn on all the engines at the same time, because I think when they do that, they are one of the probably 10 best teams in this league. Unfortunately, you can't win just based off of name recognition and talent. You got to have it show up on Sunday or Monday or Thursday. Now, with that said, I will say I do think the Rams game is a really nice win for multiple reasons. The Rams are a team that is 500. Mm-hmm. I think they're an NFC playoff team. I think they're going to be fighting for the 7th, 6th seed there. They, from an offensive skill standpoint, with Puka, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, and Matt Stafford, I mean, it's in the upper echelon of football, and our defense made them look pedestrian at best. And it didn't even let them get easy touchdowns at the end of the game, really did a good job. we started to see Waddle get a little bit more involved. I still see something off with the offense that I'm having trouble pinpointing. Like the Tua to Tyreek dynamic doesn't look great. How bad is that wrist? Waddle made a couple nice catches, had an easy concentration drop again. And frankly, that was one of Tua's poorest games that I think he's played in a few years. But you get an 8-point win on the road on a West Coast trip. And, we're going to see what this Dolphins team is all about, because they are setting themselves up with the opportunity to make this run. And, they got to play nearly perfect. And that doesn't mean that, they're going to come out and not have penalties and turnovers. What I mean is that, they got to find a way that their logo has more numbers next to it than the team they're playing on the scoreboard. How pretty that looks, I don't think any of us care. They can win a game 2-0 off of safety, and I think we'll all be happy that they win. But I do think when you look at the narratives against them, this Rams team was a win for the Miami Dolphins, not just in the scoreboard and the standings, but against the narrative, because they did beat a good team on the road on primetime.
Yeah, so I don't think I got to push back a little bit on something you said there. I think Tua was worse against Buffalo earlier this season than he was against the Rams.
He was.
Tua on third down was absolutely lights out. All 6 first downs we converted were Tua throws, and some of them were like 3rd and 19. We got 25 yards, 3rd and 13, right? And the 25 yards we got on that 19 on the 3rd and 19, right? He spun off verse, got out, extended the play, found Mostert open in open space, gave him the ball. See, that's the thing. Like, if Tua wasn't so lights out on third down, then I could sit here and say he had a bad game. But because he was so good on third down, I got to go he had an okay game. You know what I mean? Like, he was just, especially in those clutch moments in the second half, Tua was pretty on point. You know what I mean? So, like, I could even make the argument he might have been worse against Buffalo last January when we faced them before the KC game. I remember for the division, he might have been worse than, the first game of the season against Buffalo and the last game of the season against Buffalo last year. I would think I thought were worse games from him. But, I mean, that leads me into another thing, I mean, how discouraging is it for you that Tua was absolutely lights out against Buffalo and Arizona, and the defense couldn't make a stop to save its life? And because what's worrisome about that to me is Arizona is one of the hottest NFC teams right now, and we already know what the Bills are and how they have our number. That gives you the sense that, is it going to come playoff time when Tua has even if Tua has a good game, is the defense going to show up?
Yeah, or the special teams,
will they fail? Because they had a good game on Monday too, for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't even know if it was Tua's game necessarily that had me a little upset. I'll tell you what I don't like is if he keeps playing this way, man, he is setting himself up for disaster, because, he's taking sacks that he shouldn't. And we all know, what the elephant in the room is. That tackle and that interception, like, I'll be honest, and it's not the mentality that you want, but I want Tua to let that guy go score.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't let your head, because then we've already seen what that alternative looks like.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good opportunity in the next couple of weeks for the offense to go get their mojo, right, against an awful Raiders team. They should curb stomp this Raiders team this week. And I know that everyone's trying to always find ways, like the Patriots are tough. The Patriots aren't tough to the Dolphins. The Dolphins own the Patriots since Tom Brady left, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you know what I'm hoping for, bro? I'm just hoping, this is what's in the back of my head, and I'll put it on the universe. I've already put it on the universe once. I'll put it on there a second time. I'm just hoping that they don't allow the Drake May breakout game, because Drake May, I said it to EM on the phone like 2 weeks ago. He looks like Josh Allen light.
Yeah, no, he does.
And he's going to be a good player. And I just don't think this is the year. But I think something that happened that we saw in last week's game that we haven't hit on, that's huge to me. And it's the accountability factor, right? When Anthony Walker's thrusted in the starting lineup over David Long because the week before that, David Long had one of the worst games I've ever seen a Dolphins linebacker have. It was awful, right?
See, this is what's killing me though, Neal. How are people shocked that he had that game against Arizona? I've been breaking down the film every week, especially since Tua went down. I've been breaking down more defensive film on my Tua Tuesdays. David Long has been bad. He's been missing assignments. He's been shooting the wrong gap. No one should be surprised because it was building up towards that bad of a performance against Arizona. That's why I'm shocked that people are like, oh, the Arizona game. Yeah, the Arizona game was bad, but there were a ton of signs of how bad he was playing leading up to that Arizona game before that.
Absolutely. And
Same. So Mostert, right? Mostert's been fumbling in key situations. He didn't get a carry on Monday night, right? I like that from this team. They need to hold these players accountable. I want to see more of that. The next guy who needs to be held accountable is that tight end that wears number 89, because man, if there's a motion block, a motion reach block for him to make, he can't make it. He can't make it. But I like to see that this team is starting to have a standard. Like, they're not just allowing the same people to make the same mistakes. And that's a good sign for Mike McDaniels, because I don't think Mike McDaniels' job's on the line, but I think his credibility as an NFL head coach could be on the line, where he could be kind of on, fighting for a job next year if this season didn't pan out well and next season didn't go well. So, I think it's time. He's going, as a head coach, learning that it's time for me to take that next step in my evolution as a coach, where, I have a great relationship with my players, but they can't let me down continuously. And there's a difference from Jalen Waddle dropping a ball that he should have caught, which we all agree on, versus somebody like Raheem Mostert, who's fumbled in key situations in back-to-back games. No one's going to be perfect. The other team tries. You know what I mean? That you can't just replace everybody who makes a mistake, but it's when it's the same mistakes over and over again. I like to see that type of discipline from our team. And, we're going to talk about it, but when people utilize the words like soft and stuff like that, they're very, very overused in the word elite, stuff like that, right? Generational, these terms. To me, the word that is really necessary here is focus. I want to see this team be more focused on what's at hand, right? And we're hearing stories about the strip clubs and stuff like that, right? This team needs to have a focus to be great. And I actually think this week's comments come at a great time for the Miami Dolphins, where they're on this kind of ascension of their season. If you need a little, fuel to the fire, one of your ex-teammates calling you all soft could be something that gives this team a little edge.
But back to the accountability point for a sec, and with David Long here, obviously he's cut. They added Tyrell Dotson and stuff. I'm shocked that they moved off David Long before they moved off Channing Tindall. I mean, you brought up Julian Hill. If you're cutting David Long, what are you doing with Julian Hill? And maybe the whole, I know there's rumblings out there right now that the whole addition of Jack Stoll, it could mean that they're kind of, growing impatient and starting to give up some of that hope they had in Julian Hill's development right now. And his spot might be up for grabs right now. That's the thing. Okay, if you're going to start showing accountability, either go the full way or don't go any way at all. Don't give me any half measures. And there's other guys who I think you can hold to the same level of accountability. And by that, I mean releasing as David Long. And Julian Hill is the guy you mentioned as well, that, he fits that bill. Jeff Wilson Jr., what are we doing? I mean, you didn't trade him. You didn't trade him for us to watch him be inactive every Sunday. Why not even just go try and get a 7th rounder for the guy?
Right. That's a fair
point. Yeah, he's not going to play here.
And then, here's another branch of the accountability tree. Shoulder it, admit it, and take it like a man. McDaniel coming up here and basically saying that Raheem Mostert didn't get any carries and it had nothing to do with his fumbles and it had everything to do with the game plan. Okay, bro. Just admit I get you want to be everyone's buddy, and I get you got your boys, but it's okay to send that message and to say, Mostert's got to earn back some of your trust, because it's not just your trust he's got to earn back. He's got to earn back his teammates' trust, and quite frankly, the fan base's trust, because he's supposed to be one of the leaders. And against the Colts, the guy had 2 backbreaking fumbles that could have legitimately cost his team wins.
And maybe
eventually a playoff position, right? Because
Yeah.
I think they're on the verge of winning one of those 2 games. I do. I think they're on the verge if Mostert doesn't cough up the ball. And if you're talking about this team right now being 4-5, right? They would be 4-5 instead of 3.
Big difference from 3-6. Yeah,
it's a huge difference. And I've seen a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon, the Dolphins are this sleeper team that's dangerous. No, if the quarterback doesn't get started, the Dolphins are in the playoff picture right now. It's kind of, I think it's laughable when they're the dark horse. No, the Dolphins are a good football team with a lot of talent. They've overcome a lot of injuries again and remain a good player, a good team in this league. But I think this Dolphins team, if they continue to get healthy, they're not going to win out, but they can beat anyone on the schedule. And I don't care about the 49ers. I don't care. I know there's other good football teams in this league, but the Dolphins, when they played these teams last year, they found a way to always make a killer blow to themselves. I think if they came with their A game, that defense plays like it did last Monday night, and the offense is 10% better than what it was on Monday night, they're one of the hardest outs in football. That's just the way it is to me. And when you look at the back half of this schedule, man, they can win. And good for Mike McDaniel for holding players accountable. But I'm with you, man. I would have a lot more respect if he was at the podium right now saying, hey, you know what? I like Raheem. I love Raheem. He's my guy. That's why I re-signed him. And that's why he's been my bell cow since I've been here. But the bottom line is, I'm not going to let my relationship with one person impact this entire 53-man roster. I would love to hear him.
Now we got to hold the leaders as accountable as we do as the,
Yeah, because I'm not
running saying let's go cut Raheem Mostert. I don't think that's the play here. But I think it's good to show, especially the young players on the team at that position, Jalen Wright, Devon Achane, don't take any carry you get for granted, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because don't hold that ball like a loaf of potato out there. The one fumble was horrific. I was
terrible.
Terrible. So good. This team needs some of this tough love, and it's coming at a good time. And because spoiler, they're going to be 5-6 on Thanksgiving night.
Well, that's what's crazy about what you said about the different. We both agreed that 4-5 to 3-6 is such a huge difference, and I'll give you the perfect example why. You could be coming out of the Raiders game 500 if you were 4-5. You could be heading into Thanksgiving one game over 500 if you were to handle the Raiders and the Patriots and handle your business. All of a sudden, and because see, the problem is right now, and this is why you got such fluctuating playoff probabilities for the Dolphins right now. We don't face anyone on our schedule who is we don't face anyone on our remaining schedule who's ahead of us in the AFC standings. And that Colts game, man, now I think the wheels are going to fall off for them because Anthony Richardson's back this week. It looks like it's going to be a carousel
Sunday.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a carousel there. So I'm not too worried about them. But man, 4-5 would be such a huge thing. Now, you talked about us getting healthy. Wynn came back to practice today. Jones was back at practice. Do you think Chubb comes back?
Not for the season or
for the season.
I'm a little nervous
about it. I'm not going to lie. It's not. There's not a lot of clarity around it right now. I do think he'll come back at some point, but I really don't know how much of an impact he's going to make, man. I think his injury, he's not the youngest player in the league.
Well, did you hear Mike McDaniel say that Cam Good's further along than he is?
Yeah,
I think you and I are in agreement that Bradley Chubb is, if he does play a game for the Dolphins this year, it's probably that's going to be it for him. He might have already played his last game as a Miami Dolphin. That would not shock me in the least. And And you know what? I'll be honest. I can't say I hate it. I like Bradley Chubb, but the one thing I do not want to do is take snaps away from Chop Robinson because it started. It's starting to happen. And I tweeted this out. Like, watch the development of pass rushers like Odafe in Baltimore and Will McDonald for the Jets. They're both top 5 in the league in sacks right now. They both look like complete busts their first year or first 2 years in the league for Odafe. Like, Chop's coming on at the right time. I mean, he got held blatantly so many times in that game. Like, but that sack he had, that was at a big moment early in the game to swing momentum Miami's way. Like, it'd be nice to see him continue a run, especially this week. The Raiders' offensive line is banged up. Like, Chop, I want Chop and Emmanuel Agba to play a lot of snaps, man. Not to say that Chubb can't obviously come and help us if he's rotational, but I also don't want him to come back at like 65%. I just don't think that's going to do any good for us.
You ready to admit you were a little too harsh and too extreme early on with Chop?
Well, look, I call it
like I saw it. He was getting his ass kicked against Verdarian Lowe. He was getting thrown around like a little kid, so it's good to see that he's
the corner and edge are the two hardest positions to master on defense. I mean, people out here acting like Jalen Phillips was what we see right out of the gate, where if you look at the first 8 or 9 games of his rookie season, he wasn't even setting the edge very well. So, I mean, everyone had no fucking patience whatsoever with Chop Robinson, but yet they were clearly not watching the film, because if you're watching the film, everyone's up in arms about him being held this week. Well, I've broken down the film for 4 or 5 weeks. He's been getting held. This is not a new thing. Go back. You can find Braden Smith was holding him clearly. Dion Dawkins, he finally drew a flag, but Dion Dawkins was holding him clearly all the time. If you had been watching the film of this guy the last couple of weeks, you would see he's starting to string together pass rush moves like the bull rush, and then he's adding a rip to it, et cetera, et cetera. So everyone was just it's crazy how everyone realized and knew how raw he was, but everyone expected him to all of a sudden not be raw from game 1 and just be this game breaker right out of the gate. And no one it's this microwave society bullshit. No one's got patience for these young kids, and edge and corner are 2 defensive positions that are so hard to master and so hard to get good at the NFL level, especially in year 1. It's like, why are we going through these issues with Cam Smith right now? This is a result of Fangio not giving him reps last year. We are going through year 1 mistakes in year 2, because that's one of the hardest positions in football to be good at, let alone master. And we're throwing him out there in year 2, and we're kind of throwing him to the wolves because of the injuries and stuff. But everyone's got to start to exercise patience, and it's clear with how people treat quarterbacks that no one's got patience for player development anymore. But now we're getting to a point where no one's got patience for any player, even if they all understood coming out of his collegiate spot he was raw and needed a ton of work.
Yeah, I think a lot of that
stems from where the Dolphins were in their window, though, as well. Though, like I think the Dolphins. The developmental thing, and I think he's going to progress being past it by the end of the season, which is good. But you want somebody who's going to make an instant impact when you've created whatever window you think you've created. Like, I'd still take Brian Thomas Jr. tomorrow over Chop Robinson, and it is what it is.
Yeah, but we know why they didn't, because they had OBJ in the barrel.
Yeah, and
I still would take Thomas over OBJ. I'd take him over probably Waddle at this point, if I'm being honest. So, I get it, but I'm happy for Chop. I want him to be good. I want him to be a passer, because the last thing we can have at this point is another first-round pick not making that level of impact. Cam Smith, I don't think he's been awful, but yeah, he's showing rookie mistakes because technically he's a rookie, right? Like, from a playing and experience standpoint, he's a rookie. But yeah, I want Chop to continue to be the guy on that line, and he is playing. I mean, Calais Campbell and Zach Sealer, there has not been a drop-off from Christian Wilkins. Like, there has not been. Like, Calais Campbell has been.
You need to re-sign him and Jonnu right now.
Yeah, he said today that he's going to do what he's been doing and do it year by year. But, I think he likes being home, and I would get Calais Campbell locked up. And then we have Jonnu one more year, right?
Yeah, and I would add another year right now. And another guy I'd be sitting down and talking with is Teron. Do you want to come back next year? Because the level this guy's playing at, if he stays healthy, my God.
He's under contract, right?
One more year?
Yeah, but he has no guaranteed money. So
Yeah,
he'll
so
walk
they'd have-
away.
So
Yeah.
Well, it benefits both of them to give them like a 2-year deal, lower that cap hit because the cap hit's large. From what I believe, because I know if he retires, they get $14 million in relief. So if you could get it to, because he is Teron Armstead. If you ask for the brightest light on this team this season, it's been and he's been healthy, right? Like look at Tyron Smith for the Jets, right? Tyron Smith for the Jets has been the worst left tackle in football. You know what I mean? But Teron Armstead is out there playing. I mean, this is as good of left tackle play as we've seen in a long, long time.
Bro, Aaron Brewer's been really good. He just had he had his first he probably had his worst game as a Dolphin this Sunday on Monday.
The Rams defensive
line is awesome.
It's really good.
Yeah,
really
dude, it's awesome. Because Jared Verse is so good already.
Yeah, but you know what I think you saw, Neil? I think you saw the result of the weakness beside him. And you saw the result of the weakness beside him overwhelming him and him not being on his game, right? Because
the guards were awful Monday.
Yeah, and so when the guards are awful and then Aaron Brewer himself is not on his A game, that just compounds it. Now, bro, Wynn coming back, oh my God, that left side with the way Teron Armstead's playing, if Wynn can get back to the level he was last year, him, Aaron Brewer, and Armstead on that left side, that's going to be deadly, bro. You know what it might do? It might offset the Jackson loss a little bit.
Yeah, and honestly,
the Jackson loss, like Lamb wasn't great by any means.
At all, especially run blocking.
I would like to see Patrick Paul get some snaps, man. I like more than he's got.
I keep my left tackle.
But
if you get Wynn back,
they won't do this, but man, I would love to see Robert Jones go over to the right side and get Liam but out of the starting lineup, but it won't happen. But no, I think it's good to get depth at least there to have somebody, because I'll be honest, I cringed on Monday night when I saw Lester Cotton out on that field, man.
He wasn't good too. Dude, I saw his he was in like the top 7 or 6 graded Dolphins by PFF.
Yeah,
obviously I broke down the film, right? And obviously there's a ton of film that don't make my breakdown. There was like 3 or 4 straight refs from Lester Cotton that were god awful. And I'm thinking to myself, like, who the hell is grading this? That's the problem with these guys putting out these grades before the all 22 comes out. You don't get to see everything.
Yeah, I don't.
He's not good.
He's not good. He's not good at all. You don't want to see him at left guard at any point in the season. But
Let me ask you this though, because we agree we need a contingency plan at quarterback. Do we need a contingency plan at right tackle? Because Austin Jackson, he's only got 2 healthy seasons under his belt. And even last year, which is a healthy season, he only played 16 games of a 17-game schedule. But before that, his only other healthy season is 2021.
Yeah, I would say
with Austin Jackson, like when he got that extension, right? He had rebuilt himself. He had been playing at a top 10 right tackle level at that point. His play has fallen off a little bit for sure. He's not playing as high of level.
Yeah, the loss of Robert Hunt was obvious.
Right. He's not
good enough.
He went from good. He went from like this is how I say it. He went from like good, like above average to good, to like okay to above average. Like he fell down like a tier, basically.
Yeah, like he's
still a good middle of the road or better right tackle.
Yeah.
Right? I'm comfortable saying that, but I will say that the Dolphins can save significant cap space by moving on from them, and I don't think they'll do it next year, but the year after that, I think they could save some really good cap space. So depending on how the draft shakes up, I think that if you can get Brewer, Armstead, and Austin Jackson, because Austin Jackson's injury, he'll be ready for the start of training camp from what I saw. You got those 3 guys. You got the pillars of your offensive line. You need to go out there and find some guards, though. These guards,
I agree.
They're bad, man. They're Liam Eichenberg.
Yeah, and there's a good class for guards.
Oh, it's a really good class for guards. Tyler, have you watched Tyler Booker from Alabama, man? Like,
yeah, he's awesome, bro.
He is. He is a guy that if the Dolphins were drafted in 17th, I'd run to the podium and get him. And then, there's obviously the Jonas Savaiinaea from Arizona, but there's a lot of really good guys. Tate Rutledge, but Emory Jones from LSU. The guy that
Donovan Jackson, Ernest Green.
Yeah, I haven't watched this guy yet, but I know a guy that a scout that I know here locally loves is the guy. His name's Gray Zabel from North Dakota State.
I haven't watched him yet.
I haven't watched him yet either, but I've heard that like people have him graded as a second rounder. So, and I saw that he just accepted his Senior Bowl invite today. So it'll be good to see him down there in Mobile playing against some big dogs. But yeah, I would get a veteran and draft one. That's what I would do. And I know obviously Trey Smith's going to cost you $18 million a year. I don't think they go that route. But you got to go find an economy signing like they did with Aaron Brewer, because Aaron Brewer's been beautiful signing.
Oh, he's been awesome. And you know what you can do here, dude? You can wipe your hands of Liam Eichenberg. You can say, hey, his contract's up. We're not re-signing him. We maximize him as much as we could. We think we can upgrade. Or you go draft a guy and you add a free agent. You add 2 legitimate starters and you bring Liam back as depth. You know, I don't want Liam back at all. But I think this is you can get your clean break from Liam this offseason, then I would take it personally. I mean, that's where I'm at.
We keep talking about this quarterback contingency. We know we need it, right? Whether it's a free agent or a draft, right?
Let me ask you this, Neal. Is it as big of a need in the first or second round based on what you've seen since Tua's return?
Well, that's exactly
where I'm going. I'm not going to force it just because I think we need it via the draft. I'm great with them taking the best defensive tackle in round 1, whether that's if they find themselves in the top 10, which I don't think is going to happen, and that's Mason Graham. But if they're at pick 16 and Deion Walker from Kentucky's there, dude, that guy is an ass-kicking machine. Like, he is a bad, bad dude. Like, Kenneth Grant from Michigan's a guy that I think they're going to have a lot of love for, right? Walter Nolan from Mississippi is a guy, he's got some off-field red flags. He has played unbelievable this season, right? So there's guys, I would love to see them add trench players on both sides of the ball if the quarterback they want's not there. And then what I would do is whoever that free agent is, if it's Sam Darnold, I'm just throwing names out there, right? Justin Fields, you name it, they have to play for one of those guys. If they don't get one in the draft, I'm almost thinking don't go and force it, because the way I look at the draft, and we're going to talk about Shedeur in a minute, but like, I don't think the Dolphins are going to be bad enough to get Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, or anybody in the top 10, right? You don't think they're going to like now ESPN's prediction has them finishing like 16th, right? Like that seems like that's going to be old news. So, you know who I love? I love Jalen Milroe. I think he's going to end up going top 10 with all these teams needing a quarterback. So he's going to be off the board. I think Nussmeier and Aller are going to go back to school. So, like, for me, it's like your guy Jackson Dart. If he's there at pick, let's just say 45,
or the third round, even. Jeez.
Yeah, yeah. If he's in the third round, then I think you can pounce. I'm almost at a point with the Dolphins where I'm using round 1 and round 2 to solidify my trenches as best as possible. Whatever that looks like, I'm doing that. And then, because I also think that they have to strike to get a receiver with one of those compensatory picks to get their number 3 receiver. And a guy that I like a lot from UCLA is J. Michael Sturdivant, 6'3", a guy that brings some size to the position. But I think they need a guy that has a little bit, because like when I was watching the game the other night and they get to the red zone, like I think Tua would do really well with a guy that can go up and get it. And we don't have that guy. You know what I mean? We just don't have that guy. So I'm not in the position now where, I mean, outside of those guys that are go, like I don't want Quinn Ewers. I don't want him. You know what I mean? I don't want to force the issue. Like I do think we need a contingency plan. I don't know what that looks like yet. But like I know you've mentioned a guy. Maybe you call Houston to see if you can get David Mills, for a 4th or something. Like I like they got to get something. But I don't want to force it, because I think Tua's been, that Buffalo game was one of his best games he's played his career.
Dude, that Buffalo, that Buffalo game and then the Buffalo game in 2022 in Buffalo. How do we have those type of performances from him where he's lights out and we still can't win, bro?
Yeah, I don't know how we beat the Buffalo Bills, man. Like I don't even think, honestly, and this is good, I don't think they're that good. I think they have our number for some reason, and the ball's bounced. Last year, you know how they started slow, the ball wasn't bouncing the way. This year, the ball's really bouncing their way. Everything's going their way, right? So, but I'll be honest, I don't really care about beating the Bills as much. Like, win a damn playoff game by any means necessary. That's what I
agree.
want, right? Like that's
I
all I
agree.
care about. Like if the Bills can win the division, like that doesn't mean as much to me. What I will say is I think the Dolphins are a lot closer than even I anticipated them being against Buffalo, because that first game the wheels fell off. And this is
but it goes back to what you said. That first game was exactly what you just alluded to. They got every bounce, even that Dubois. I'll never get it out of my head. The Dubois interception, bro. The bounce that thing took off of Dubois' shoulder, dude. It bounced like 10 feet to the sideline, where the corner was just sitting there, like, okay, thank you. Like, what do you do?
And one thing
I think a lot of people ignore is like that's one play in the game. But one play like that can change a lot of momentum. And when things go bad in the NFL, it happens fast. Because like you see this with Tua on in that game, the first Buffalo game, and a little bit of what I saw with the Rams is like when he makes a mistake, then he starts pressing and playing like a little bit of hero ball because he wants to make up for it.
Yeah,
it's like, dude, shake it off. Who gives a shit? Live to fight another day. Like, and Mike said that in his presser, and I do think they'll try to beat that into Tua's head a little bit more. But like, Tua's been very good since coming back overall, and his problem for me is the availability. Look, there's not a quarterback in this draft that's better than Tua Tagovailoa. I will say that, and I know there's a lot of Miami Hurricane fans that are listening in the chat. Cameron Ward will not be better than Tua Tagovailoa in the NFL. I'll call that now. I just don't think he will be. You can't go find another quarterback like that. It just doesn't happen. Like the teams that find great quarterbacks, like you think about like the Ravens with Lamar right now. Every team in football passed on Lamar, including the Ravens. The Ravens drafted Hayden Hurst earlier in that round, and then came back and got Lamar Jackson. Right? You look at Patrick Mahomes. Like the Chiefs moved up to get him, sure, but 11 teams passed on him before that. And Mitch Trubisky was drafted before him, right? The greatest quarterback we've ever seen. 32 NFL teams passed on the guy for 5 rounds, and then finally the Patriots took him in round 6. Like, the best quarterbacks in this game aren't always guys drafted in the top 5. It just doesn't happen like that. So what I would like to see the Dolphins do more and more of is draft guys, and it can be 3rd round, it can be 4th round, whatever round, with elite traits. And see if you can strike lightning in a bottle, right? Like a guy that I like, Joe Milton, for example. The guy's as inaccurate as any quarterback I've ever seen, but he's special with his arm strength and his ability to move. Can he be molded with the right coach to a good quarterback? I don't know, but there's a lottery tickets, because when you look at the NFL draft, like, we love the draft. So we know prospects that are there in the 5th and 6th round. We create boards, we fall in love with players and hope guys follow us. But the other way to look at the draft is, the reality is, 6th, 7th round picks don't make your team all the time, right? And they're pretty much throwaways. And if you can find a guy with that,
Elijah Higgins,
right. If you can find a guy with large amounts of talent, and you have a chance to mold them, there's nothing better. Look at the San Francisco 49ers. They had the worst trade in NFL history and drafted Trey Lance. They should be drafting top 5 in next year's draft. They just happened to get with Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, who's a borderline top 10 quarterback in this league. Like, that's how the best teams in football have all gotten lucky. Like, let's just be honest. And it's okay to admit that. Like, but you don't get lucky if you don't play the game, which is, let's keep drafting quarterbacks until you find someone that might eventually be better than Tua Tagovailoa. That's what the Dolphins have to do, and they might not do it. And then that's the best problem to have, because you have your franchise guy.
Well, I mean, it's just an early look, dude. Look at this draft and this offseason. We need contingency plan at quarterback, right? We're probably going to need another wide receiver for depth, all right?
100%.
We need a number 3 receiver bad.
Yeah,
with
Malik
3
might
or
step
4.
up.
Well, I think he'll be there. But
you're going to need a contingency plan at right tackle. You need guards, like we just talked about. We have no real contingency plan at center, if you think about it.
Safety for sure.
Safety for sure. Even if you keep Holland, you need to partner him with someone. Linebacker, I mean, other than the 3 guys right now, the depth is between Duke Riley and you could probably get away with that if you brought all those guys back. We're going to need depth at the interior defensive line. We're going to need depth at edge, because we both agree you're going to move off of Chubb, and then Phillips ain't going to probably be healthy. Like if you like stack up the needs, man, like there's some serious needs coming in through this offseason.
But you know what? They're
actually going to be in some pretty good salary cap space, and I haven't crunched the numbers in a while. But like, let's just say they do. They signed to his contract knowing that they were going to restructure and save $20 million next year. Like they did that on purpose. That was
and
part
then
of
Chubb's money. Yeah,
that's another $20 million. The cap, if you go to over the cap or spot track, they are going off of this year's cap. If the cap rises another $20 to $30 million, that's a game changer for the Dolphins, right? And it's a pretty weak free agent class overall. Like right now, my number one free agent is Javon Holland, right? After all these guys have resigned. So the Dolphins could find a way to slap a tag on him or something. But like, I do think they're going to have a lot of needs. And that, this is why I like the Aaron Brewer signing. That was a $7 million a year signing for a guy that's playing top 5 at his position in football right now. Like, that's how you win in this league, is by not paying those big free agent contracts. Now, the beauty of this is, and it's been a long time since we could say this, we're loaded with draft capital. And I think we're going to add to it. I could see maybe some moves in the offseason where we're acquiring some mid-round picks and stuff like that. So I do think they have a lot of needs, but I think they're actually going to be in a much healthier salary cap space position than anticipated. Now, they're not going to, I don't think you're going to go out there and see them sign $100 million contracts, but knowing that Bradley Chubb's going to be a post-June cut and it's $20 million, they don't have to sign their draft class till after June like they did this year, which lets them have more money to spend in free agency. I think they'll be in good position, and with it being a weak class, in free agency, instead of like players that are not great getting paid a lot, what I think is going to happen is some players are going to sit a lot longer. We've been seeing more and more of that, and I think the Dolphins will go in there and find a couple good, pieces to add to their. Especially, I'd love to see them get somebody that can start on the offensive line. Get another bona fide starter at right or left guard. Again, if you come back with the season with Pat Paul as your swing tackle and 4 bona fide starters before you get to the draft, I mean, I think a lot of us as Dolphins fans are going to be pretty excited with those prospects, because I still think that Tua Tagovailoa helps any offensive line he plays behind. But if you actually give him a good offensive line, you will see the best version of him.
So how do you view this team right now after that win against the Rams? The Rams had won 3 in a row coming off that. Do you view these guys as, are they still pretenders, or are they turning into the contenders we expected them to be? Because even in the losses, people are finding silver linings. Like I noticed when we lost to the Bills, Dolphins Twitter was really finding silver linings in that loss, because there's a lot of good things to take away. You look at, we had the second, Tua had the second highest passing EPA per play in the McDermott era. We have the 6th best offensive performance in terms of EPA per play against the Bills in the Sean McDermott era. Like, there were a lot of positives to take away from the Bills loss. There were obviously positives to take away from the Arizona loss, even though we should have won both games. Are you seeing this team starting to turn into the contenders we expected them to be, or do they still look like pretenders to you?
It's funny.
I'll be able to answer that question firmly at midnight on Thanksgiving Eve, to be honest. But what I'm seeing, I like the direction they're heading, because you talked about that Buffalo game. And I don't do the participation trophy moral victory game, but that was a game where a lot of teams could have just folded, right? Like, the season was kind of shaken away from you. Your quarterback had been injured for a poor season. It was easy for the Dolphins to fold, and they put on their best performances of the year. That tells me a lot about the makeup of the team, right? Maybe they're not the same old Dolphins. And look, I can't wait to see how this ride ends, because I think there's nothing worse than being the team that's the number 1 seed heading into week 14 of the season, and then going down and finishing as the 7th seed and getting your ass kicked in Kansas City, right? To fade like that at the end of the season, to me, is the signs of a weak team. To start with all the adversity they started and to get on a roll here shows me the opposite, right? They just won, again, I'll emphasize, a meaningful Monday Night Football game on a road, a cross-country trip for them, which is not easy to do. I think they win by 20 points plus on Sunday. I think they they laughed the Raiders out of the stadium. I really do. And I think they come back the next week, and I think they put a beat down on the Patriots. And Drake May might have some high spots, but I just think the Dolphins offense is going to be able to cook. They win that game on Thanksgiving against Jordan Love and the Packers, which I think is a winnable game. Like, sure, it's hard to play in Lambeau and it's going to be cold, but like I think from a talent standpoint, the Dolphins are better than the Packers. I do. And if you win that, and then you look at the schedule for the rest of the year, and you have
The Browns,
the Jets twice, a Texans team that doesn't look so immortal anymore, to be honest. They haven't been playing really good football at all. And what happened to them
Stroud's in a
last week,
sophomore slump, too.
yeah, he doesn't look great. I mean, look, San Francisco on paper, they're probably a team that might have a better roster than us. But, I don't know. I'm not going to count the Dolphins out of that game. Like, there's a lot of winnable games on this team's schedule. And I do think at that 7 seed, somebody's getting in at 9-8. And I don't believe in the Colts. We just talked about that. Another team I don't believe in is the Denver Broncos. I think they lose to Atlanta this weekend. Yeah. I think they have the Chiefs and the Chargers coming up. Like, who I'm becoming a fan of? And it's kind of ironic. I'm a Chargers fan this week. I want them to beat the Bengals on Sunday Night Football and knock the Bengals down a pole. Because the way I look at it,
I don't think the Chargers are going to slip up, too, from that playoff spot.
Well, they have a good coach, right?
So,
yeah.
But when you look at it, the Chiefs are going to win their division. The Bills are going to win our division. The Texans are likely going to win their division. And then the Ravens or Steelers are going to win theirs. Whoever doesn't win that division is the 5th seed. The 6th seed is more than likely going to be the Chargers. So the team I think we're in the most competition for that 7th spot is the Cincinnati Bengals. I think it's Dolphins or Bengals that spot's up for grabs for them. And man, I'll tell you, dude, I thought I was dying laying down watching that football game between Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. Those two guys are special cats, man. Special football players.
Can you believe the game Jamar Chase had and you lose?
But you know what, dude? Here's the problem with the Bengals. You know why they lost that game? Zach Taylor. What a horrible coach.
Yeah,
he
is
a horrible
yeah.
coach. And I think he will stay that way. And they have tough divisional matchups coming up. And there's a ticking time bomb in Cincinnati named Jamar Chase, right? And that guy has got to be the most unhappy.
Have they given him his extension or no?
No. And that's where it's like, dude, like this guy.
T. Higgins looks like he's taking some extra time off to fix his ailments because he hasn't gotten new money yet either, right?
Yeah, I think they call that
a business decision, right? What T. Higgins has been doing, because I think he's definitely not playing because he doesn't have long-term money, right? And I'll be honest, like, it's just going to see, man, all the Dolphins have to do is, take care of the business they're supposed to, stay healthy, obviously. But Thanksgiving, man, that turkey's going to taste as good as ever if the Dolphins go into Lambeau Field and beat the Packers. And I think those, when you play 2020 quarterbacks like Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, they mean a little bit more. I do, right? We know the narrative that Brian Flores potentially, wherever somebody wanted Jordan Love, and we all like Jordan Love, and I like Jordan Love still.
Yeah,
but man,
I love Jordan Love in that process.
He's not a Dolphin, so I want us. You know what I mean? I want us to beat him,
to whoop that ass.
And we can. And the number one thing I want to see in the next 2 weeks, man, is Tyreek, Waddle, and Tua getting that mojo back together, man. I think we're starting.
I'll tell you this much. If they lose one of these next 2 games, the meltdown is going to be epic. Because
I think if they lost one of the next 2 games, or if they find themselves on the I think Tyreek's going to get wrist surgery, and you know what I mean. Like I think he's holding out hope because he does think they can make a run. You know what though? I'll say Reason. I really believe this. I think that football team thinks they can make a run. I don't think it's smoke and mirrors. I don't think they're getting up in front of that.
I believe. Yeah, no, I believe that too. Yeah,
I think they believe in their team, and I really.
Do you think DeShon Elliott's comments has become bullet board material for them?
It has,
and I think it's motivating. And I honestly don't know if DeShon Elliott was necessarily wrong, if the team was going to strip clubs and they were checked out after they lost the Titans. But I will say this: I like DeShon Elliott. He played pretty well for us. He did give up 5 touchdowns, and
on that losing streak, I mean, someone posted on Twitter, God bless you, he got lit up in that Ravens game. I forgot how badly he got lit up in that Ravens game.
They went right after him because they knew him, man, and they knew what he was. He's a physical player, but, man, you give him a tough assignment, he can't cover any ground. You know what I mean? Like, they knew that. But, like, I'll say this. That I think that when you do that, right, and DeShon Elliott's doing a lot of barking right now, you got a big game coming up. You're focused on the Miami Dolphins when you got Lamar Jackson and the Ravens coming to town. What a distraction to your current football team, right? Like, you want to call people soft. You're in the most physical rivalry in sports coming up this Sunday, and you're worried about the Miami Dolphins from last year, right? Like, I loved seeing Kader Kohu come, and I don't think Kader Kohu's soft. You know what I mean? Like, and a mentality can be soft, but like every NFL roster has people that aren't super tough guys, right? Like, but I will say that there's the one thing I've noticed about this year's team, and I give a lot of this to Calais Campbell. I think that what happens is when your best players are the tough guys, then it's contagious. When your best players aren't the tough guys, like, and everyone's going to go talk shit to me and say, be a Ravens fan. But, like, I hate Ray Lewis. But, man, when he was here in Baltimore, dude, it didn't matter who you were. You didn't step out of line without seeing 52 in your face. That. And the old Dolphins teams, like, that was Zach Thomas here, man. Zach Thomas was that Taylor. Guy, Jason Taylor. Like, we haven't had our best players be released. Like, I love Tyreek Hill.
Even Joey Porter when he was here, right? Like, even Joey Porter when he was here.
Yeah, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I love Tyreek Hill, but Tyreek's not that leader that, like, is going to instill fear in his teammates. But, like, Calais Campbell, man, he's a nice, funny guy off the mic. He's a bad dude. He's one of the best leaders in football. He's probably one of the most respected men in the entire league, Calais Campbell. And as bad as Jordan Poyer has been in some games, I do think he's a good leader out there. Like, I do think this team has more leadership to help them navigate the storm in the back half of the season. And if we're sitting here in 8 weeks, Reason, and this team has found a way to find themselves in the playoffs, then that's when you can label the Dolphins a dangerous team because they had to overcome that adversity, where last year I think that adversity let the ship sink a little bit.
Knight says 140 passer rating and 5 touchdowns. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Probably 2 against the
Raiders, I'm guessing. And
yeah.
Dude, I will say this. I think it's not going to be to the level of the Broncos. I think the Dolphins are going to steamroll. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wilkins is definitely out still, right?
I think he is. I was actually – he's talking about DeShon Elliott. DeShon Elliott's allowed 5 touchdowns and 140 passer rating when he's been targeted.
Oh, yeah.
DeShon Elliott's an adequate NFL
I was actually
safety.
looking for the Wilkins thing while you were talking earlier, and I forgot to follow up on it. But I think he is out.
Yeah, and their center, Andre James, has not practiced this week. Colton Miller, their left tackle, has been limited all week. Their starting right guard, Cody Whitehair, has not practiced yet this week. They could be down 3 starting offensive linemen. They obviously don't have Devontae Adams anymore, and honestly, Devontae Adams doesn't look like Devontae Adams if we're being honest anyway. Gardner Minshew is starting against us. I mean, man, the Dolphins – and you know what? This game couldn't come at a better time.
Yeah, we need it. Right. To build that momentum off of the Rams game, right?
Beat the shit out of them. Beat the shit out of the Raiders.
Cody Whitehair hasn't practiced this week. Andre James hasn't practiced, and either has Nate Hobbs. Wilkins isn't even on the injury report, so I'm going to guess he's not playing.
I think he's on the IR still.
Yeah, I think he is. I think you're right.
Yeah, so like that, I mean –
and I think that's kind of sad to not play against old 94, but he is a good player, and I'm glad if he's not playing against
Wilkins
us.
is still on IR. There you go.
Yeah, so I mean, like, and they have a very average back seven.
Well, let me ask you about this weekend. Okay, Weaver came out and said that because Kendall Fuller's already been ruled out second concussion this year, Neal, at a contact position like that, and that second concussion. Like, Tua at least led with his head, and we were like, oh, that's a bad concussion. That second concussion on Kendall Fuller didn't look like a bad hit, but he said there's going to be an open competition between Cam Smith, Ethan Bonner, and, of course, now back in the lineup is Storm Duck. They look like they have more faith in Storm Duck and Cam Smith than Ethan Bonner. That's just the signs that they've shown us. Also, should be coming back over the next couple of weeks. Patrick McMorris is some safety help. The secondary should start to get healthy in the next couple of weeks. What are your thoughts on who would you have out there replacing Kendall Fuller? Because I would basically, this is how I'd run it. Cam Smith hasn't done anything to earn clearing away that spot. I would basically rotate him and Storm Duck in and out, and I would play off who looks like has the hotter hand and is in the rhythm that game. I just don't think they have faith in Ethan Bonner. What are your thoughts on replacing Kendall Fuller?
Baptism by fire.
Give it to Cam Smith and let him either sink or swim.
Yeah,
That's what I would do, because I think, like, I don't think Cam Smith is. I said this earlier. I don't think he's been great, and he was going against Cooper Kupp, and Kupp had him in a blender. But Cooper Kupp can do that to almost
one of the
anybody.
best runners in the NFL.
Right.
You know, yeah.
Right. And honestly, it wasn't like Cooper Kupp was out there like Jamar Chase was against the Ravens, putting up 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, he had 4 catches on Cam Smith, I think. One of them was a one-handed catch that he pulled into. I want to see Cam Smith have every opportunity to win this job, because I will say this, Reason: if he is not the guy at the end of this year, one position that moves up to the top of the Dolphins' need list is cornerback. So I think you need to find out what you have in him, and I think these are good matchups for him, right? Like, he's not going against the Raiders or the Patriots, any world beaters at the wide receiver position. Let him go out there and play. Like, he's not going to see Cooper Kupp in the next 2 weeks, and that way you have Kendall Fuller back against Green Bay. And if Cam Smith's playing well, you can ease Kendall Fuller back in, and then you have 4 quality cornerbacks on the roster, maybe 4.5 if you count Storm Duck, right? So I think it's a good time again for Kendall Fuller to have this concussion, if there is such thing as a good time. And the good news with
agree.
We have him under contract 1 more year. It's a low cap hit. I think Kendall Fuller will be fine. He's been a really good find.
You know what it reminds me of, Neil? Remember last year where we wanted Cam Smith to come in that 3-game stretch that started with the Panthers game?
Yep.
And Fangio didn't put him in here. You look at this week, right? Who's their number 1 receiver? Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, right? And then next week you go up against New England, like you mentioned. Kayshon Boutte is who's their number 1 guy over there? Like, you're going up against, you're going to have weak matchups that'll allow you to build some confidence, get your feet under you a little bit more, maybe make some plays if the ball comes that way. So I agree. You know what? I agree with you. Like, in terms of this reminds me of the stretch last year, that 2 or 3 game stretch, including the Panthers game, where we're like, start Cam Smith now because we're not facing anything. We're facing bad offenses. Let him build some confidence here. So hopefully him and the team can build some confidence in this.
Well,
I think he could do it. I think Tyreek needs to build some confidence up, even though, he is Tyreek Hill. He's not a guy that lacks a lot of confidence, but to get that, those 100-yard games that he rips it with a touchdown and a clip coming. Waddle could use some big catches. Get Chop to get his 3rd sack in a row, because he could. I mean, Chop. This is a game where Chop could have 2. Like, against this Raiders team, Chop could get 2. And
Kevin thinks he's gonna have 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and a strip sack touchdown.
Well, if he does that,
man. Yeah. I mean, look, but it's a good game. That Raiders front is going to have a really tough time with Sealer, Campbell, and man, I got to give a guy a shout out, Reason. When I rewatched the game this week, who's not the most skilled guy who plays well for us? DeShon Hand.
Yeah, I know.
He's a guy that I would lock up for another year because he's cheap and he's a serviceable player, man. He's good. He got his hand on that ball. Like, DeShon Hand's been a good little player here for the last couple weeks.
Yeah, he has been. Final thoughts, Neil, and also your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders potentially being a package at the next level. Now, a report's come out since we're live that there have been no serious discussions between Deion and any NFL teams regarding a position. Quote, Prime hasn't had any official conversations about NFL jobs, focused on, quote, winning at Colorado, from Jordan Schultz. What are your thoughts about Shedeur and Deion? Like for example, let's say Shedeur fell to us and we drafted Shedeur. I think people are misconstruing Deion, basically saying he'll step in if he goes to the wrong franchise. But I think if he goes to the right franchise with the right coach, I don't see Deion saying, hey, I'll step in.
No, and if it's
a package deal, I'm out.
Yeah.
As good of a cornerback as Deion Sanders is, I want nothing to do with him being my NFL head coach. And I don't think the Dolphins would ever move on from a guy like Mike McDaniel for Deion Sanders. There's probably 3 teams that are dumb enough to do that. the Raiders, who we play this week, the Giants, and the Jets, right? Like those are the three teams that I think that would be dumb enough. Shedeur Sanders is a good quarterback. Shedeur Sanders has some Ben Roethlisberger to his game to me. I think he's actually probably the best overall fit for the Miami Dolphins in the draft. I think he goes top 5. I don't think we can sniff him. But I get what Dion's trying to do. We saw, and, the Mannins kind of did this with Eli, right? He was drafted by the Chargers. They forced him to New York. I think what Dion's, and I do think Dion has this type of insight. He knows where he doesn't want his son to go. And I can't fault the man for wanting their son to be put in a successful situation, right? So in a league where there's NLI money and players have more power than ever, I think you're going to see some of that happen over the next few years where if a team that's absolute dog shit or, if Shedeur Sanders didn't want to be a Jet, for example, they'll make sure it doesn't happen, man. And that's the new that's that NLI money. These guys are coming out of college with NFL money now. So, and final thoughts, man, like, hey, let's go streaking, through the quad to the gymnasium. Like, let's go win. Let's go beat the Raiders. Let's get 2 in a row. Let's go beat New England. Nothing will make me happier as a Dolphins fan to be 5-6 and have that Thanksgiving game mean something. Because I will tell you, there was a time where I was like, man, I don't know if I want to go to my parents and have Thanksgiving this year. I was so depressed. The Dolphins suck. I'm like, this game's going to suck. But, like, because you remember the Green Bay and Christmas a few years back, like,
it's a double-edged sword.
Maybe it's my time to be on the winning side. So, you win that game and you're back to 6-6, and suddenly everything you want is right in front of you. Because I do think if the Dolphins win the next 2 games, they'll be heading into Green Bay as the 7th seed.
Would you make a run at Nate Davis cleared waivers today? Would you make a run at Nate Davis for right guard?
Absolutely. Why not?
What we're talking about $1.7 million probably for the rest of the year. Like, we just cut David Long to save that type of money. Nate Davis is better than Liam Eichenberg. Like, you know what I mean? He just is. So I think that whenever you can build a contingency on the offensive line, like so what you're asking me practically is, would I take Nate Davis and cut Lester Cotton? The answer is 10 out of 10 times. Hell yes, right? Like this guy we just got from the Eagles. I don't think he's any good. I'm not going to sit here and try to think he's good, but I think that move was made, and Hayden Rucci coming back to practice, so I had to say, hey,
Julian Hill,
here you go. This is it. This is your final test. You go out there and you're whiffing on blocks and getting our running backs killed. And one final thought I'll add is, if you want to look at an unsung hero of this team, Alec Ingold means a lot to the Miami Dolphins. And that was more than apparent on Monday night, because the Dolphins running game was a joke without him. And that guy, he played for the Raiders, right? So him coming back against his old team, he's probably out for blood on Sunday.
It's crazy. You could probably say the same thing for Holland because of how that safety unit looked without him available. They were awful. Marcus May. I mean, we didn't even talk about that. Marcus May missing the tackle on 3rd and 4 to Arizona, allowing them to kill the clock and the field goal instead of us getting the ball back. Misses the tackle, had a clear shot. Remember that little touchdown throw Josh Allen made, right? And Marcus May missed the tackle on that. 2 weeks in a row, key tackles. Marcus May also missed the tackle. He had Ray Davis on that 63-yard touchdown run. One-on-one. He had 15 yards to get ready to square him up and miss. Javon Holland, that's a crazy thing. We can all agree we don't see Chris Greer paying Javon Holland $20 million because, he's going to say, hey, your availability. But, brother, Javon Holland's got an argument with how our safety unit looks without him for that $20 million. So, that was tough.
I don't think the Dolphins are going to pay Javon Holland, but I will say this. I don't see how you don't, right? Like, to let a player of that caliber go when you're going to have the worst safety room in football when he leaves, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't see how you let him get out the door.
Yeah.
And I think $20 million is a lot of money. But if you sign him to a long-term extension, year one will be low. Like, we go over this. Bradley Chubb's money is going to be coming off the book. Armstead is going to retire in the near future. Like, how do you let a guy who's in the prime of his career, who's he's a top 5 to 7 safety in football when healthy. Like, how do you not want to keep a guy like Javon Holland? I know there's, like, people whose agenda, and, I'm not telling them they're wrong. I just disagree. Like, I don't understand how the Miami Dolphins are a better football team without Javon Holland. I just don't. And it's not my money. I don't give a shit about $20 million. Stephen Ross, $20 million means nothing to Stephen Ross. If I had my vote, I'd love to see Javon Holland with a 4 or 5 year extension be priority number one, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Guys, I'll be back tomorrow to preview the Raiders game. Then I'll be down there. Saturday, I'll be at the Panthers and the Jets game. Sunday, we'll be at the Raiders game. So make sure you check me out if you are down there. Smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new. Appreciate each and every one of you for coming through. Always a pleasure, Neil. And as always, fins up. We'll see y'all in the next one.